remember, one of the key ideas of this life on life discipleship 5-step thing is you want to develop a culture of discipleship. So if somebody came to you and said, what is your women's ministry about? The words would come out, we're about helping other ladies grow to be more like Jesus. Something to that effect, which is discipleship. That's what the culture is. It's not, we really have some cool curriculum we go through. Nothing wrong with that. Again, I got to keep repeating myself because I'm not trying to back it. I'm just saying the culture of discipleship is something different. Something not different, deeper. And one of the problems we have, this is why I'm just going to end with this one. I'm going to talk about multiplication. That we move beyond end users to people who are helping others be more like Jesus. We're not coming to church just to learn to be more like Jesus. We're coming to church to learn how to help other people become more like Jesus. Because when you do that, you become more Jesus.
Right.
That's a long sentence there, but that's true. I mean, that's the point. If you're helping them, if you're helping people help people become more like Christ, then you have a church of discipleship or a ministry of discipleship. And one of the things that Ogden talks about, and I believe this, is that we have trouble at this multiplication idea. So I'm going to try to get to a concept of micro groups just to put it out there for you to consider. But I got to do a little. So the definition of multiplication, it's self-initiating. A person that's being multiplied to make disciples on their own now, they can self-initiatedly be a fully devoted reproducer. They are thinking about who in their sphere of life they can help move to the right. It's just a constant question. Who am I helping move to the right? Who am I helping move to the right? If we have people in our ministries who aren't thinking that, then we haven't done our job yet. Everybody has to be thinking that. So, and it's raising the bar, by the way. Okay, it is a fight because it's getting people involved. More than just fully devoted and growing is great. We want that, but it's one more step. And I would suggest if you're not to the multiplication step, you're not really fully devoted anyway. But that's not. And you're seeking to help others grow. Whoops. That's it. Just help others grow. Now, this is typically, Ogden says this, just so you know. He says, I would do discipleship, and it would be one-on-one discipleship. I would watch this happen, and we'd be involved in talking about the growing edges of our faith, which is good. Okay, that's nothing wrong with that. We would learn and practice basic spiritual disciplines together. You don't need to write all this part, okay? Just we explore implications of obedience to Christ and various spheres of influence. We talk about ministry. All important, all good, but there was no reproduction. That's the part I want you to see. If we're doing discipleship ministry, life-on-life ministry, and there's no reproduction, we aren't doing it right. That's a core conviction. So as we think about how we go about this, we must make multiplication an assumption. Now go, I got to go first to, he has a little diatribe, but I'm not going to do that. Let's go, quick. All right, here we go. All right, so what page, this will be page for you, 6. No, I'm sorry, that's wrong. Page 7, top of page 7. I want to talk about a concept. You'll see at the top. It's called microgroup. That's Ogden's little term. Okay. Now, this is the part of the program of the morning. I want you to hear me very carefully. One of Ogden's observations in years of helping churches and doing discipleship ministries was there was a lack of multiplication. It wasn't being reproduced. This is, again, I'm being very careful, but he said because often we only think about discipleship as a Paul-Timothy relationship. Now, notice, only. There is an important role for Paul-Timothy relationships. There are times when you have the obvious mentor with the mentee. It could be age, it could be life and Christian maturity, but there's something about that relationship. When I talk to my college students, a lot of them had that with their youth pastor, a youth pastor's wife, a volunteer, an adult with a 15-year-old. That is obviously a Paul-Timothy relationships. We need those. Those are important. We are not making this either or. Have I made that clear enough? Hello. Oh, it's a grandma. So I'm not speaking against that, right? But there are other models that are non-hierarchical. He calls them Paul-Barnabas models, okay? Which involves more than one person, and they're more at the same level as groups. He finds these are better at reproducing. Now again, I did not say Paul-Barnabas or Paul-Timothy are bad or wrong. No, that's a very important place. But I think we also need to think about these microgroups. That's what I've been doing the last few years. Okay, I've had groups of guys that we do a microgroup. Although I am the old guy Bible professor, but still. So, what are those? That is a side-by-side relate. Oh, by the way, if you're asking, when he says microgroup, that could be anywhere from 3, I think 5. 3 to 5. That's a big, I know it's a limit, but we're not talking a group of 12. Okay, that is not a microgroup. Again, this comes from experience. You guys know this, right? The bigger the group, the less intimacy you have. But you need a group to get more intimacy, to get more voices. So 3 to 5 is a good number. 2 is just the Paul-Timothy. 6 maybe. I might give you 6, but probably not. In heaven, they will be 3 to 5. You're constantly, another thing you're doing in this model is you will have, like, each week somebody leading the group discussion or leading the group prayer time, convening the group, but you share that because your goal is, right, even if you do one-on-one, oh. So this person disciples this person. So even if it was really consistent, and so the next time this person is discipling this person, and that person is discipling a person, and then the next time that person is discipling a person, that person. I mean, you can do that, or if you have 5, you're all discipling each other, and then the next time, each of these people has a group of 4 or 5, and they're working with them. Look how much faster, okay, and how broader you can get it going. Yes.
So as the group multiplies, the original group stays together.
No, that's a bad thing. Because then they become a holy huddle. And us.
Holy huddle.
We don't want holy huddles.
So, but I mean, they're discipling each other
Yeah.
and discipling
No,
others?
no.
Okay, so
Okay, well, I mean, this is just a way you can, let's say you decided to do a September to end of May discipleship season. So, and you would start small, and so I assume I'm Bart, so I'm working with you four. Okay, and by the way, the way you start it though, you always have somebody in each group that's done this before. So how do you start? Well, you have a leader who's done this before, worked with 4 ladies, and then the next season, they have a group. And that's how it goes. You start slow. Okay? You don't start fast. You don't do sign-ups for this one. Right? You start slow. So you work with them, and then the expectation is each of those 4 are going to have their own group next time. And that's how it works. Now you can still be friends and talk to each other. It doesn't mean, but the whole point, and that's one of the problems, right? That's one of the problems we've seen in group settings, is you become a group for 10 years. Well, if you're not reproducing, you're not being a disciple, because you're becoming just very, what's it called? A clique, right? You're becoming a clique, and that's not helpful. But that's hard. Let me don't let me stand here and say it's not hard to multiply the next time, because you love your friends you made that those last 9 months.
I guess I wasn't saying you wouldn't multiply, but as I have a new group, you're saying you wouldn't continue to meet with
No, because then
that.
you'd be 7 different groups
Okay.
eventually.
Okay.
Right. I mean, if you were just doing pure programming, yeah, I would sense you have a once a week meeting with this group, and then the next time you split up. And let me also say, so let's say you recruit, and I also suggest, I don't have the time to get on all this, but I think the best way is to if let's just say you 4 are the 4 that I'm going to prepare to be the first leaders of this ministry. And so I spend, and you can do they say usually a third of the time you would normally spend to train your group leaders. So I'd spend 4 months with you, and we meet every week doing what we would do to run a micro group. Okay? But I'd be telling you be praying right now. Who are you going to recruit for your group? What ladies are you going to talk to? And say, hey, will you be part of our group? Will you be part of my group? Okay? So you're thinking, and you're recruiting. It's not a sign-up sheet. You're recruiting people you already have a connection with, probably. Okay? And maybe they do have a list of people that would like to be a part of one. You can pick one of them too. But then you start, and then you've got those groups going. Okay? And what you tell the people when you recruit them, this is important. But this is important to know. Not everybody will always be called to have their own group, and that's okay. Just the way God's wired them, and they may not be ready the first time around. That person could stay in your group. You're not saying you have to have your own group. No, we want you, for God to have you lay in your heart to have a group. That's the hope. But you may not be ready, and that's fine. We'll stay in a group next year. Okay? So you're not browbeating people, but you're giving people that vision. Right? Because multiplication is essential. Yeah.
I was curious, it sounds like these groups are like a little bit shorter term.
That's up to the, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just curious with the idea of multiplying and getting new groups, how that goes with discipleship for people that have more significant issues or trauma, since the relationship presumably wouldn't be like super deep.
And that's, again, I am not, my point is not to give you the way to do it. What you have to ask, given your context, is how do we make relational life investment, multiplication, and transformation happen? So you're going to have certain people that may stay with you forever because of something, and that's okay. Certain people in the trauma in their life it may take them years to be ready to be the person building to somebody else. And again, that's why it's great. It's not synchronized, right? It's based on that person, and because you're only working with 4 people, you know that person so well. You could say, Susie, we'll stay together next year. You don't need to. So the micro groups give you the option of being case by case. And so you're not forcing people. You'd never want to stand up front and say, if you're not ready to be your own group by this time next year, you're not a Christian. Okay, I won't say that. But you give that hint, right? But right? One of the good ways to get through the traumas is helping others, right? There's a part of serving others that does help. They may not be the same responsibility and same level, but you've got it. That's a part of how God wired us. That's a healing process to help others. So how can that person help others? Mm-hmm.
The terminology of mentoring and discipling seem like they're really close.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain the difference?
I would say to you that mentoring typically is that hierarchical Paul Timothy. So you've got a mentor who is the recognized leader, mentor, mature versus this person, and they're trying to bring them up. Okay, that would be the more mentor. Whereas this is seen as more hierarchical. Now, you're going to have a person in there that's had experience doing this. Okay, I would say it that way. Because you couldn't just throw people, hey, okay, go ahead and do it. You want to have somebody that's had experience what that's like, what it feels like, and how it goes. But it's not, it's less, see, part of the problem with the hierarchical one, which I didn't get into, but is very few Timothys feel like they can be a Paul. That's why it's hard to multiply. They just become end users, and it takes a really good Paul to help build into them in such a way as they can become a Paul. But we just tend to see it, and it's, and that's not helpful. I mean, it can be helpful, I should say it's not helpful, but it doesn't get to multiplication very well. And it's especially hard if the Paul is a, trained minister, right, working with you. Because you're not a trained, you could never do that as a trained minister. And so you just have to keep thinking that. Yeah.
I think also, I've been blessed by many wonderful women in my life, but there's also a difference in just like the mindset. So when you are mentoring someone, sometimes the leader has a tendency to look down on you as if you're this helpless child, but really all of us are indwelled with the power of Christ. And so I think there needs to be a shift in the understanding that, you may be mentoring this person to grow, but you are also there to learn from them and to encourage them to share. Like it goes both ways versus you're looking down on someone. I think when you sometimes get into discipleship, it can become so one-sided that then you handicap the other person because that's all they've just been fed from a bottle. They're not expected to give back to their mentor or
the mentoring, the voice, say it this way, the voice is simply top down. Now there are times we need that. Again, I'm not saying it. But here, the voices are like this. Yes. You've got more, number one, you've got more than one voice in your life, which you need. Right? And number two, it's more, you realize, because often when you're the mentee, how often do you feel like you can help the mentor? Right? It's just hard. But here, you're always thinking, oh, I can help. Susie just said, oh, I can help her. And that draws out that ministry mindset from you if you're a part of a non-hierarchical relationship. Let's see what it says here. It's a peer mentoring model. And what about modeling? You don't have to have a mentor position to mentor. Like I said, I've worked with a group of college guys last year, 2 years ago. Last year I worked with a couple of young guys in our church who are in their 20s. I'm obviously the more mentor person. Okay? But the way we did it was a much more non-hierarchical way. And all we did, I brought our little, I was going to show you earlier. We just went through the book of John, so we can meet every Tuesday at Cracker Barrel, at Panera Bread. And so I made for them, I made for each of us a notebook on the Gospel of John, and we take a chapter a week. Our goal is to read the chapter 3 times a day, prepare, and we talk about the chapter. And then we pray, and then we'd be done. And it used to take about 75 minutes. Okay? And that's what we did. Sometimes I would use a commentary to look up the hard questions, because I knew they asked them. But, it wasn't hard. I had a sheet of paper, that I copied out of this book, 101 Bible Reading, about what are the kind of questions you ask when you're studying the Gospels and Acts. And it was real simple. And anybody can talk about it as you're going through the passage. And that's all we did. It wasn't complicated. But guess what? It was definitely biblically based, and it was prayerful. That's all we need to do. Just talk about the Bible. My friend who's a pastor in Columbus, who's very steeped in his discipleship pastor, and he said it's just amazing how many, I'm going to talk bad here, men don't know how to talk about the Bible with other men. You don't, you can look at Bryson if you're going to but yeah, but just to talk, just to be able to talk about the Bible with someone is a skill that we don't do because we don't ever try it, so we're not fluent in it. And that just there is all you need to do. And just learning to talk about the Bible together. But what was I doing? Oh, Mom, I wanted to show you that. So the leader of a microgroup, oops, I don't know what that is just the person that convenes the meeting and keeps the covenant. That's something else we're not going to have time with. But you need to have covenants as a part of the group that everybody signs up and agrees to do. Things like, I'll be here every week on time with my homework done, which for us was read our chapter of John every day. Right? And pray for each other. Which is everything said in the group stays in the group. Oh, that's a big one. Right? Probably some of you have been involved in groups like that. That is a disaster. But those kinds of things. And one of the things in a covenant would be, after our group season is done, I will seriously give thought to starting my own group. Now, notice how I said that. I will seriously give thought. I won't not. You don't. By the way, if somebody's the first time they're in a group, they don't know what it's like. They don't know if they can do that. So don't make them sign up for it. So I will seriously give thought to it. So why do they work better? It's a shift from an unnatural pressure to natural participation of the disciple. When you add people, I remember I was a youth pastor. By the way, this is probably, I was not. You ever tried to have deep conversations with a junior high boy? Huh? Have you? Yeah. So, well, if you think discipleship is this, well, it is. I mean, it's really hard. But I was also, for 8 years, I was the chaplain of the basketball team at Cedarville. And so now you're talking college-age basketball players. And they weren't any easier than junior high boys. And I would try to have, I'd make a breakfast or, and try to have these spiritual conversations. And I'd go home and beat myself up because it just, it wasn't, by the way, I'm not really good at the one-on-one conversations. I'm an only child. So I just talk to myself in my head all the time. That's all I know how to do. But when you have a group like this, the conversation just happens. There's not all the pressure on the mentor. There's a lot of pressure when you are responsible for that person's spiritual growth. I know I'm saying that wrong, but it's just easier. And it's amazing now I can meet with college-age guys and have spiritual conversations. They were engineering majors too. Wow. See, I could take the easy route and take the Bible majors. Right? But of course, they want to impress you with their Greek and Hebrew, so they're fun. So I picked engineers. Those of you who are married to, well, I won't go there. Okay. Well, you're married to an engineer. Kind of, no. So it adds a third person. There's a mutuality, less pressure. Don't write all this down. Did I give you things for this? Okay, fine. It's a peer, not a parent. Okay, second thing. There's a shift from hierarchical to relational. Oh, it's a So it's a come alongside mutual journey. You can move from focus on discipler to focus on Jesus. You're not just the Bible answer man or woman. Right? You can be a real person who shares your struggles too. Because that's also a pressure of the mentor-mentee. But here, everybody's sharing their struggles. A shift from dialogue to dynamic interchange. A shift from limited input to there's wisdom in numbers. And then a shift from addition then to multiplication. The best you can do with a hierarchical model is addition. Right? Every time. You add one person, you add one person. This is how you multiply. You rotate, but like I said, the person that's done this before is going to leave for a while. Would you leave the Bible study portion, leave the prayer time? But then you give other people, they're responsible the next week. What are they doing? They're getting trained how to lead a group. And you pass that around. And by this time you're used to each other. It's not threatening. And you're preparing all to step out on your own and therefore reproduce. Whoops. And I gotta stop. I had way too big a what I thought I could do in this account. It's okay. Any other questions? I know you got to go. 11:30. I got to be good. Yes.
So I know that there's already a way set up for the women's ministry. If you want to be disciples, if you want to disciple. Is there something after men or women?
Amen. I was going to ask that exact question.
Bryson, I think they're taking shots at us. There will be. Oh, Bryson, that's part of Bryson's job. Yeah. Is that coming to you? Okay. So he's the guy. He's going to, now, yeah, he's the guy. You're right. I mean, that's obviously a role. Yes. He says yes, so good. Yes.
So for the introverts among us, let's say I'm leading a micro group with 4 other ladies, and I do that for 4 or 5 months or whatever. So then when the next round starts, let's say those 4 ladies go out and they multiply into their own micro groups. What do I do? Do I go into a different group? Do I recruit 4 other people? Because I'm going to run out of people pretty fast. Just by nature, the way I interact
that's a great
in my
question.
relationships.
Now again, remember, I don't have it. Just a. I would not tell you to. I'm not forcing this into a certain way. So it depends. But let me tell you this. You're right. You run out of people you know. But the word on the street is the people that do the group, the ministries that do this and churches that do this. When you're talking to your friend over coffee and said, our group met last week and it was so helpful. We talked about this struggle I'm having with my 3rd grade son and we prayed for him. And I just saw something. She goes, what? Well, I have this group I meet with in our church. Guess what? Can I be a part of that? And you're gonna it just goes, it spreads like wildfire. People want to be a part of it. See, that's the thing. People want this. People need it. So it's going to spread word of mouth. You start slow, but you think big or dream big. So you could, if you want to, once time, just be a part of another group. There's no, I would say, there's not necessarily rules, right? But if you find there's no reproduction taking place, that's a problem. But not if you did this once every season, doesn't mean you have to have a new group every season. You don't have to. But don't stay together more than 2. I made that up.
I didn't hear the question from over there that you referenced, Bryce. What?
Oh, Bryce, the question was in the back, what about men's ministry, which we don't have? Okay. And Bryson's part of his job is to get that going. But Bryson,
maybe someone was asking about filling in the rest of the time.
No. The blanks don't help you if I'm not. No. But Bryson's working on that. Men's ministry.
So my question, follow up with her, is that say someone else is like, oh, I'd really like to do that. Would you not recommend bringing a new person into an existing group
Yes, that's another great question which we didn't get a chance to go over. And this is really important when you're doing group ministry. There's such a thing as closed groups and there's such a thing as open groups. And that's the question. Can somebody join your group anytime and come be a part of your group? Okay, by the way, it's not either or. They're both valid for different reasons. But you've already shared, right? She's already guessed, I think micro groups should be closed groups. So after the first 2 weeks, nobody can join because it messes up, the intimacy that you're going to put together. You can't have a stranger all of a sudden show up. So what you would do, because they're closed groups, is they get on the list for the next time around, right? And then they'll be a part of a group. But they can't just join. Again, that's for you to decide. Maybe you have a group that starts halfway through. But yeah, you don't. I think you're going to lose the intimacy if you always can bring a stranger in. You got to build trust. You're not going to. Another big powerful thing is this is really important for men, but it's important for women too. Sin loses its power when we bring it out in the open. Yes. Okay, that's real. I work with men, so I know this, but but you don't bring it out in the open to anybody, do you? This is another reason I would say same gender. You don't bring everything out to your wife or girlfriend. You need to bring it out to the men. And that's going to take, for men, a lot longer than women, I think, to build that trust that you can bring that out in the open. And once you've added a new person, you start over again. And that's such an important part of this life on life, is to be able to bring our sin out in the open. Yeah.
I just want to jump in there. That's part of our role too as women's ministry, is if you have completed that, or people have gone out to other groups and you're ready, then you can contact me or Barb and say, my group has made other groups, I'm ready for new people, because people are contacting the church constantly, women who just haven't had that organic relationship form, so they're looking to us to help them find their people to fit into.
And that's another reason for the group, is you can get more people at once. If you only do mentor-mentee, you've got to have enough mentors with enough time to take all the mentees.
Yes.
And there are some people who need the mentor. Okay, that's their stage in their Christian life, and they really need that. But there are a lot who need that, and that's great. Okay, let me pray for you guys. Okay, Lord, I just thank you so much for these ladies, and thank you for the leadership already you've given in women's ministry. And there are so many ladies that want to not just know you better, but to help others know you better. Lord, that we know we're on the right track when that's our heart's desire. And I just pray that as you just throw out some ideas today, not organized, just throw them out, that some of these will stick, and this will help the ministry itself progress as it develops life on life ministry. And then, as we've talked about, that some husbands will say, wow, I would like that. And that men could be a part of this as well. And so that's what we need. That's what we're about. That's what you're about. And that's the good news. Your Spirit is involved in all of this, using your word and using your church. And so it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you.
See ya.